going to turn over the conversation and let you hear from one of our stellar alumna. Samantha Paige Davis is the founder and executive director of Black Swan Academy. She is an advocate, trainer, organizer, and unyielding optimist. She believes that everyone has the innate ability to succeed, but must be given the opportunity to do so. When she was just 25, Samantha founded Black Swan Academy to create a pipeline of Black youth civic leaders. In 2019, Samantha started the Sam and Tamara Davis Family Scholarship Fund with her siblings to support graduating high school seniors in her hometown of Pittsburgh who have parents that have mental or physical disability and or who were raised in a single adult household. She currently serves on the Black Women and Girls Advocacy Task Force and the Self-Development of People National Committee of Presbyterian Church USA. She is a former field engagement manager for the YWCA USA, where she has developed a new state-level advocacy initiative, a nationwide get out the vote effort, and mobilized over 200 associations to do racial and gender justice work. We are proud that Samantha holds our Master's in Public Policy here from the School of Public Affairs. Her work has been recognized not only by American University, but by Pittsburgh's Public Schools, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Washington, and the National Urban League all together. I'm so pleased to welcome Samantha here today. I know you're going to learn a lot from her, and I want to turn over the floor to her. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Vicki. Good morning to the newest class of the School of Public Affairs. Congratulations and welcome to American University. I am Samantha Paige Davis, a proud American University policy wonk. I work at the intersection of race and gender justice. I'm a Pittsburgh native, though DC is absolutely my home that I cherish. I'm an organizer, a lover of the arts and nature, and as you heard, I am the founder and executive director of the Black Swan Academy. It is an honor, and I am very excited to be here to speak with you all today, even though it is virtually. And I want to just start with that. I want to acknowledge that, man, these are bizarre times. What a time it is for you, I imagine, to be starting such an epic journey. A time like none of us have ever seen before, and one that has certainly altered all of our stories. We're in a global pandemic, an uprising, an election that has so many people's lives at stake. And while I'm still early in my remarks, if you remember nothing else, remember this. All this is not happenstance. It is not some singular event that will come and go. But this is a pivotal time in our history that will shape who you are. And what you choose to do in this moment will set you up for the future. So I encourage you to sit in this moment and all of the feelings that it is bringing about. And I'm here to encourage you to do something. Do something. Let yourself be sparked into action. Be courageous enough to have those difficult conversations. Lean into curiosity. Use your voice. Use your story. Use your privilege to aggressively move our society forward. Because we need you. In all reality, we need you to stand with your Black, with your Indigenous and Brown siblings, with your migrant neighbors, with your queer or disabled or poor classmates. Choose in this moment to be on the side of history that fights for a more just, equitable, and liberated world for all of us. Whatever side that is, whatever that looks like for you. That is what I believe we are charged to do in this School of Public Affairs. And that is what I charge you to do during your time here at American and in the decades to follow. I believe we each have a role to play, especially those of us who have committed or are committing our lives to a career path in public service. Play your role. And if you haven't started yet, you can start now. So here's the thing. I know that feels like a lot of responsibility, and stepping into the work of public service can be overwhelming. And I know you also don't know me, but I mean it. I believe that in order to be a part of positive systemic change, we all must start now. We can do that right here over Zoom, and definitely while you're a student at American University. So I'm just gonna share a few points. Some of these are grounded in what you can do as a student, and many of that will echo the sentiments that Vicki just shared. No, this wasn't planned. I did not hear her remarks prior to this, but many of that will echo how you can show up as a student at American University. But most of it is going to talk about your universal, your global role in creating change and being a change agent. So, number one, build relationships. Get to know your fellow students, those within SPA and outside of it, your professors, the deans, the community groups and organizations that you come across. In this work, it often is heart-wrenching, physically and emotionally exhausting, especially for those of us who live at the margins. What we need most is to be in community with one another and to support each other. That starts with connection. Number two, it's important to recognize that being at AU is a privilege. One that will afford you many opportunities to learn, to serve, to work, and to explore. Take those opportunities and bring other people with you. When I was at American University, my first year in grad school, I ran for the community service chair of the student council. I won and filled my committee with students of color and allies who were committed to serving the most marginalized communities in DC. The following year, I became president of that council with a Black vice president and students of color and allies holding the majority of the officer seats. And together, we were able to create change, not just at AU and ensure that all of the voices were heard, but in our broader community. And so attend the assemblies, join decision-making bodies, and extracurricular activities. Don't spread yourself too thin. I echo that Vicki said earlier. But know that every single thing that I did while I'm at AU and that you do while you're at AU will position you for a great career, for a great life, if you take advantage of those opportunities. So those positions I held, the organizations I volunteered with, the knowledge that I gained, I can honestly say I've been able to apply that in so many aspects of my life and in my work. Number three, use this time to practice the skills. Our goal is not perfection, but progress. Be in a commitment of practice so that you can be an effective change agent now and in the future. That means challenge your professors. That means challenge your own ideas. So much of this world of policy and politics, if you're trying to create change, it's about pushing against the grain. It's about a constant commitment to unlearning the various ways in which we've all been conditioned by the society and learning new ways rooted in inclusion and anti-racism. Number four, and this part truly takes practice. Again, this work, and I can't say it enough, is extremely emotionally laborious. So learn now how to set boundaries. Something I'm not very good at, but learn it and practice it. How to set boundaries, how to take time for yourself. Start doing that now. Start communicating your expectations and start valuing yourself over your work. And then I also encourage you to go beyond the confines of American University. Be an active participant in the world around you and be an advocate for the change that needs to occur locally in your new home at some point, Washington, D.C. American University sits in one of the most affluent neighborhoods in D.C., and it is easy to be stuck in that bubble. Don't. When I first came to DC, I was told by many people on campus and otherwise where not to go, what areas to avoid, who to stay away from. And unfortunately, what people intended to be words to encourage safety often perpetuated a narrative of anti-Blackness and elitism. We need to end that cycle and that narrative. While in DC, I want you all to explore all of DC. DC is one of the most wealthiest cities in this nation, but it is also where among its people are some of the poorest in this nation. And so the reality outside of American University when it comes to DC is that Black babies born in Southeast DC are 10 times more likely to die than white babies living in Northwest, where American University is. DC's Chinatown has went from 3,000 Chinese residents to under 300. And in the past 13 years, more than 20,000 Black residents have been displaced. In our schools, there are twice as many police officers than there are social workers. Black girls in DC are 20 times more likely to be suspended than white girls. Nearly 100% of all students expelled from school are Black. So while you're taking on this charge in the School of Public Affairs to be change agents, to shift policies and practice and culture, there is so much work to be done now, to be done here. I encourage you to learn your new community, its history of systemic oppression, and tap into the ways to support those people, your people. And again, let this moment spark you into action. The way that the moment when I was in DC at American University sparked me. At American University in 2012, I was my second year in grad school. On February 26, 2012, Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old Black boy, was murdered at the hands of a white neighborhood watchman. I, then a student at American University, 24 years old, I was distraught as I witnessed the devaluing of his life, his experience, the voice of his peers, enraged by the way the media made him out to be the criminal, and the way society bought onto it, the way our courts upheld that narrative. And though the emotions were flowing, as I'm sure many of the emotions are flowing in you all right now in this moment with the pandemic, with the deaths and the injustice around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, while the emotions were flowing in me at that time around Trayvon Martin, I wasn't sparked into action until it got personal. And I mean really personal. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. And so after the murder of Trayvon Martin, sometime during that year, I went home to my cousin Tyrell's high school graduation. Tyrell, also a 17-year-old Black boy, whose father was murdered before he was 1 year old, whose mother had him when she was 16, who grew up, like me, in majority low-income communities, Black neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. He was standing at his high school graduation, addressing his class as a valedictorian. I literally cried the whole weekend, mostly tears of joy, but underneath that was this deep frustration and sadness with the realization that Tyrell could have been Trayvon, and that Trayvon should have been Tyrell. So I and two other AU policy wonks, Shannon Bell and Keith Towery, were sparked into action. We created the Black Swan Academy to give Black youth the tools and the opportunities to create change for themselves, and to shift a culture and a narrative that too often associates young and Black, young and person of color with being inherently bad or criminal. And also to shed light on and dismantle the systems that oppress and act as barriers to the greatness of all of our communities. In 5 years, Black Swan Academy has been able to support nearly 100 Black youth in middle and high school to gain skills in advocacy, organizing, and public policy. We provided 32 young people with scholarships. We've reached nearly 10,000 community members through service projects and through outreach efforts. Supported and led advocacy campaigns that produced more funding for mental health supports in schools, affordable housing, community violence interrupters, and legislation that reduces suspensions, prevents childhood-led exposure, decreases the voting age to 16. We're not there yet, but we're working on that one. And we are now leading the local demand for police-free schools. In closing, I want to be clear that this work that I'm mentioning is not a testament of my abilities, and I'm not sharing in a way to pat myself or even AU on the back. But I do share it to show you what is possible. What is possible when you do something. So do something. Let yourself be sparked into action. Be courageous enough to have the difficult conversations. Lean into curiosity. Use your voice, your story, your privilege to aggressively move our society forward. In the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, I hope that if you fall forward in the fight for freedom. Don't ever back off.